So let me just start the topic here, and I'll give a quick intro, and then I'll pass it on to the real discussion with Lionel. So today, this is a HPE Developer Community Meetup. This is the June edition. It was supposed to be planned in May. We had to postpone, but Lionel is here today, and this is great. We're going to talk about Compute Ops Management, the API, the ecosystem, and the latest updates and developer tools. So before we do that, let me just remind you a couple of things. We have those meetups, which we started more than 2 years ago now, every month. This is always the last Wednesday of every month. I'm still working on a topic for July and August, so bear with me. It's a little bit more difficult with the HPE Discover next week and summer, but the date is July 30th, and we'll come up with something, I'm sure. This is where we go in depth into a particular technology. Sometimes it's open source, sometimes it's an HPE product. We also have another type of session that we started even earlier than that, called the Munch and Learn. And these are more, again, it's a monthly series. We've been running this since I think 2022 or something like that. In this session, it's more like thought leadership and maybe a little more product and vendor agnostic. Not always, but we try. And it's always going to be delivered by HPE senior speakers. While the meetup can be used, we can have topics delivered by partners. We had a few in the past. In the background, I think Denis will from the team will paste the links so you can cut and paste those for reference. We started earlier this fiscal year a new series called AI Jam series, to make it simple. This is a bit different. It's a panel discussion on AI, and we have had, I think, 6 sessions so far. The next session is in July. Every time we pick a new topic for discussion and invite relevant speakers. So stay tuned for that. Right now, I'm afraid I don't have any topics to provide for any of the talks, but working on it. So these are for the Skill Up, which you can find on our website. We also have workshops on demand that you can take a look at. These are Jupyter notebook-based workshops, mostly around command line and API, using Jupyter Notebook cells to run code. It's available 24/7 over the internet. It's available for free to anyone, so give it a try. You can find there, Docker 101, what's a REST API, OneView, ILO, GreenLake APIs, all sorts of topic covered there, but also open source topics such as Docker 101, Kubernetes 101, and many other ones. Even some programming languages like Python, Rust. Take a look. If you do try them, provide feedback, what you'd like to see there, what's not working, what's working, and that kind of thing. This whole thing is a community which we are building here, and we need help from members to amplify and contribute. So if you like these talks, don't hesitate to invite others to join these talks. A reminder, this is an open talk. It's open to partners, customers. So please, HPE folks, avoid asking questions which could be embarrassing. So remember, these are external and public talks. So you can invite anyone to join. We have a monthly newsletter which you can subscribe to. It's pretty easy, just an email. And then we send you one mail at the beginning of the month about our upcoming talks, about the published blogs, and some other things. You can join that and invite others to join as well. We have a dedicated Slack workspace where we have several channels dedicated to the different HPE products in which you can, with which you have an API to work with, or you can integrate with. So you can ask questions there, and you can, of course, provide response there. We have a Twitter X account if you're interested in this. But if you're an SME, I'm also interested to talk to you because we are looking for people to contribute blogs. And again, anybody can contribute. We have a guide to explain how to write blogs. So it's pretty straightforward. It's open source. Our content management system is open source. All we really require is a GitHub account. If you're also interested in delivering one of these meetup, reach out to us. If you want to provide content to our workshop on demand, this is a kind of a framework, and you can plug additional content. Also reach out to us. So these are the links to get to the different things I just covered: the newsletter, the Slack, the internal Slack, which we also have. I just like to add to the internal folks in the discussion today. We started a new HPE developer profession. So this is internal only, and we are providing content to this subset of the community there. And there already been 3 sessions recorded. You can go check. I will put the link in the chat after my discussion here. And then I would like to also thank a group of people that joined with the same name, and these are the digital learner persons. They registered through a different mechanism. So welcome to the dev community. It's difficult for me to keep track of your visits. So if you want to join, for example, the newsletter, that will get us a chance to make sure that you get updated on what's coming in the future. But thanks for joining. I see quite a few of you. Thank you. And with that, I would like to hand over to Lionel for the discussion on COM.
Hello everyone. Yes, that's Lionel Julian. So I'm part of the HPE Compute Technical Enablement team. I've been around for years now. You see my hairs. They are becoming white. So today we are going to discuss about the HPE Compute Ops Management. I will say COM. It's easier, the COM API. And we will spend time on a few minutes on focusing on the handy tools that I have and the different resources that I have made available on my GitHub repositories, and particularly for developers. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk also about Postman collections that I have that are very useful. So this is something that I'm going to show you in a minute. So we'll do a quick demo on that, and then we will cover the new PowerShell library that has been released recently, for COM and GreenLake. So, but before we dive in, let me very quickly cover, and remind you what type, what different API we've got, when we are managing compute from HPE. So first, if you're on premise, you have the HPE OneView. So this is our on-premise offering, that gives you the RESTful API for automation, and you can manage things like server setup, health monitoring. You can do firmware updates. It's a great fit if you are running everything in your own data center. Then there's the HPE ILO embedded to the Proleon servers, which is built in right into the server. So the ILO has a RESTful API as well. They're a little bit tricky. The documentation is not as good as the one we have for OneView and COM. It's a little bit more complex, and it's all about redfish. So we certainly need to make some progress on that. And maybe, and I hope that the AI will help us, to find the correct information in the redfish API. But we have an ILO API, and so every time, usually I use the ILO, when you have no possibility, when you use OneView or COM, you end up, using the ILO to do the setup of things that is missing. So, and then the last option that we have is for cloud-based. So this is our SaaS offering. And with COM, we have several RESTful APIs, not a single one. There's many. And again, this is a RESTful API, fully documented, and we are going to see that in a minute. with a lot of functionalities. You can manage lots of servers at once with groups. You can maintain, your environment and works with any kind of automation tools that can perfectly integrate with COM and GreenLake, like Ansible, Terraform, even with some scripting language like PowerShell that we are going to talk in a minute. So all these APIs, OneView, ILO, or GreenLake, they all use a standard-based API built on REST. They use JSON for data exchange, so it's kind of very easy to integrate, with any type of tools that you may use day to day. So that's so no matter if you are on-prem or using the embedded ILO or working in the cloud, we provide, the performance, the correct APIs, the security, and you can integrate with any type of tools that you have. So if you're a developer, an admin working with COM, the API reference is the go-to start point. This is where you can start. This is a must have a bookmark in your in your browser. So whether you want to pull information from the API, if you want to handle hardware, firmware updates, hardware inventory, if you want to automate tasks, this is the place to go. If you want to learn how to use the API, what type of resources and actions that you can do, this is the place to go. But I'm not going to go deep into details about this API reference and all the details about the functionalities and the different attributes, because we had, several blogs on this subject. We had different talks on this subject, and so I recommend you, to look at these talks that we have available. For today, I'm going to focus on what is new, with the API, with the COM API in particular today. So one page you will definitely want to check out is the change log that you have on this portal. I'm showing here the URL. So you go to the developer portal, you go to services, Compute Ops Management, you get the API reference for COM, you select COM. So in this page, you have tons of APIs, and the ones for data services, for GreenLake, and so on, that you select COM, and in there you have all the different resources and APIs. And at the end, you have the change log page. And this is where we describe and we list every change that we do all the time. So whether it's something that is added or updated or removed, it's clearly listed here in this page. So this is usually the place where I go all the time, to check what is coming on, and particularly it's going to be deprecated or even removed. So sometimes, we are removing some old V1, Beta 1 APIs, but don't worry, we are sending notifications. We are giving you time, to make your updates. So this is not a big challenge. The good news is that every time you get a new update, this is for the benefits of everyone, because we are adding features. We are adding, capabilities and performance and security and new properties and new fixes and so on. So this is really the place to go, the changelog page. Okay. So what are the recent updates that we had, on the COM API? So we have rolled out a bunch of new V1 APIs. So I don't know if you saw in the previous page, we had V1 Beta 1 APIs, we had V1 Beta 2, and now we are starting to introduce V1 APIs, like for groups, for jobs, for settings, for servers. So these are comes with new properties and definitions, so giving you more options, and flexibility for managing everything. We have recently introduced support for creating custom ILO server settings. I don't know if you saw that in the notification of COM in the GUI. Before, you can only use, the HPE predefined security settings, which mainly covered, the recommended security options. Now you can set things like SNMP, SSH, HTTPS, password complexity, and minimum password length, and this type of, parameters, and apply them across, your groups and across, multiple ILOs. More details will come soon in the updated API reference, because today you don't see the details on the API reference, but this is coming. A super handy feature for developers. This is the SSO to ILO, from COM. That lets you access, the ILO without credentials. Even if you don't know the credentials of your ILOs, you might have, a policy that changes password all the time on your ILOs. You may probably use a system you don't remember the password, So the good news is that now we fully support the SSO to ILOs from the COM. So, and this is really good because now you can even use, the good news is that since late April, your ILO SSO privilege now match with your COM role. So before, it was we were stuck with read-only access, but now you have the permission you have in COM. So if you are COM administrator, you will access, as an administrator to the ILO. So the SSO token, this is one of the action that does this APIs, that you can create a job, and the job is get SSO URL that generates a URL, and from that URL you can get a session token from the cookie session, in fact, in the response. So, and then you can use that session token, to make a native Redfish API calls directly to the ILO. And in this case, you use the X token, authentication token header, and then you can use and create, native Redfish calls without, without credentials. So this is very useful, particularly because today, even if we have introduced, some new ILO settings, I was discussing, just before about SSH, about SNMP, and so on. But there's always, tiny settings that you want to set that is not supported by COM. So, and finally, you need to access to the ILO. So this is really a cool feature, for developers to easily access to the ILO. What's next? We have changed the endpoint for GLP. So COM now supports, the new GreenLake API endpoints. Now it uses, the region.api.greenlake.hpe.com format. So before it was, dash api.compute. So we have made this change, to align with all the other APIs from GreenLake for consistency. And the old endpoint, so it's still working, but this is deprecated. And so you have, a few months in front of you, to make your change and to adapt, your code to the new endpoint APIs. What's next? API prefix change. So since April 1st, the Compute Ops prefix, the UI that we were using initially with the COM API, is officially deprecated. So now you have to use /compute-ops-management for all your API calls. So there was a transition period where both worked, but now any request that you will make on the old compute-ops UI will fail. So be careful if you are facing this issue. This is because of the old UI that you are using. So make sure you are changing the prefix now to the new one. The endpoint server ID for raw inventory is also deprecated. That was one of the first APIs or UI endpoint that was introduced initially for COM. This was one of the first implementation, and the successor endpoint is now simplified. It's just a /inventory, and it provides a much better structures and richer data. All is proper available, and it's a good change, and it provides a lot of information now. You pretty get almost everything about your server, including hardware, firmware, driver, software, and everything in the same place. So it's very useful. Last but not the least, with the retirement of the AHS online viewer tool, CAM now lets you read the content of AHS log file directly. Okay, so there's an API for that. The GUI is going to be improved as well to do that, but today you have to use the API, I believe, if I remember correctly. So this new API is available for uploading, but also for accessing the AHS log data. And you can read this log in two formats. You have the JSON format and the CSV format. And this includes a lot of good information. So you have, the hardware, the firmware, the logs, the drivers, the software, and even the thermal information status in this in the CSV file or the JSON file. We have added two new APIs as well, to help you analyze the energy usage of your systems. The first one is energy over time, is energy by an entity. Okay, these are part of the new AI insights, which now include sustainability insights powered by AI. So if you go to the GUI, you can see now this new tab, and you can access to sustainability data. So we can view both historical and projected data. So that's something new for sustainability data. So it collects up to 6 months of metrics, which is pretty good. And concerning the prediction, you can see 1 month of prediction. And we do the prediction, the refresh of the prediction every 7 days. And you've got the same from the API. Obviously, from the API, you can do the same, request and see all this historical data, plus the projected data. So previously, carbon footprint and everything, all the sustainability data was only available after running a carbon footprint report, if you remember. And you could see only 7 days. So now you can go up to 6 months of data, which is pretty good. So with this data, they were not available for more than 7 days. So now you can really get, the energy usage. You can analyze and see the trending, and see what is consuming power. And you can then understand, what is the environmental impact. We have also introduced an API, 2 new APIs for the server utilization metrics. And this is totally new. We didn't have that available in the past. We could not get, the CPU and memory statistics or metrics. Now you can get all of that. So that's really good to track and analyze, your server usage, and collect that data and send that data, to some pretty nice script to trigger something. If you see that a server is, has too much CPU running, and then you can, maybe move some workloads around, across servers that are less consumed. Pretty good stuff. Quick reminder, sorry. So what is needed to use the COM API? So this is just, a quick reminder, because I'm sure that all of you know that. So you need to set up, some API credentials from the interface on the platform on GreenLake. So you need to go to the Manage Workspace. You need to click on Personal API Clients, and then you can generate an API for a specific service. I can see here in my slide that we see, three different services: one for COM, one for data services, the service to manage storage systems, and one for GLP, for GreenLake. So when you want to create an API credentials, you need to provide a name, like I have in my slide here, COM UE Central Ansible, and then you have to select the service, and then then you will get, a client ID, a client secret, and a connectivity endpoint. Okay. And this is what I was explaining that we changed recently. Now it's not anymore compute, dash API compute. It's API.GreenLake. So that's what has been changed. And remember, there's a maximum of 7 personal API credentials that is supported. So you can go above of 7, but that's about enough. If you have 2 or 3 services running in different regions, if you have data services plus GreenLake, this is about 5 or 6, API credentials that you need. So you can almost do everything that you need. Next. Remember, once you have these API credentials, you are ready to connect to the COM API. And here is how it works. You first send a post request, to the GreenLake SSO endpoint that is usually provided when you create the credentials. And then the server responds with a JSON object that includes the access token. And this access token is valid for 2 hours. And it's the bearer token that you can use for the subsequent request that you can execute. So you can just send REST requests via HTTPS with the correct endpoint and include this authorization header. So you have to put a bearer and plus the token that was generated previously. And then the API will respond with a JSON format file payload containing the data that you have requested, as we can see here in the slide. Okay, so now let's check some of the key resources that we have for developers. So to help you work faster and more efficiently, I'm sharing Postman collections and GitHub projects. So in fact, whenever I work on a project, when I work for a customer, for an internal project, a hands-on lab, or when I do a quick demo for customers, I try to always share my work with the community, and I published my work on my repositories. So the one that I'm using is GitHub. I have a project on GitHub, and I have also a collection for Postman. So let's take a look and see what we can do with these resources, because they can really boost your performance and your development process. Because you don't need to start from scratch. You have examples, you have collections, and that is very useful when you want to develop a script or integrate with something. So the first, so in fact, there are 2 important public workspace that you can use. One is for ILO. This is one for my teammate, François Donzé. But it's all about ILO Redfish. I'm providing this collection as well, because this is the best place, to find information about ILO Redfish calls, with a lot of details. So make sure you you check this public collection from François. And mine, so you have the link for my own workspace collection. And in mine, I have shared several collections. I have one for ILO, but I have one as well for GreenLake. I have one for COM. I have one for OneView with a lot of details and everything. And so I'm going to show you very quick. If you click on the link, you will go to this public workspace that I manage and I publish all the time. So if you want to start using it, so I'm sure if you are not familiar first with Postman, it's a very popular tool for testing and documenting and playing and automating API calls. This is, I believe, one of the most known tools that developers are using. There are other tools, but this one is pretty useful because you can share your collections easily. So if you go to my public workspace, you can easily create a fork. You can see the different collections that I have. You can easily create a fork just by clicking here, and you can create a fork, okay? And then by doing that, the benefits is that you will get notifications all the time. I make a change, I add an API call or whatever, you will get a notification, and then you can merge the changes with my fork. I provide also some environments, variables, that are very important because this is where you can set your credentials. So after the creation, in GreenLake of the client credentials, you can then write here your client ID, client secret, and your endpoint that is provided, according to the COM instance that you are using. And once you have done that, so the same, you can create a fork of the different environment variables that I'm using. So there's one for COM, there's one for OneView, for ILO, and for GreenLake. Okay, for GreenLake, for example, something that is important is the workspace name that you need to provide. Okay, and then once you have created the fork, then you can start to work. So let me jump to my personal workspace, not the public one, to make my demo. And first, so if you select the COM collection, you have a bunch of resources. These are all the APIs that we support with COM. You can see groups, filters, you can see reports, servers, and so on. So when you want to create a session, you go to the first folder, you click send. It will automatically populate, the client ID, client secrets using the variables. And remember, you have to select the correct environment variables that you want to use. Here, I'm using the COM HPE Mougin. That's the workspace name that I'm using. And then you can create your session. Second course that is good to run as well is to set the latest, to create the global variables for all, the resource API versions. And for that, I do a trick, I use I do a trick to check the API reference, and then I select the latest API version that I want to use for all my requests. And then I can do the third request to collect all the job templates UIs or IDs that I'm going to use for all the jobs. And then when you have done that, this is really the initial setup, you need to create your session and collect all the different variables. And once that is complete, then you can start doing things like you can do servers and list all servers and send the requests. Very easy. Send. You can see this is automatically populating the variables that are coming from my environment variables, for my environments, and then I do the /servers to collect all the servers. And you can see that I have 28 in total. servers in my com instance. You can do filter, like I can do a filter host name, and then you will get only one server because you filter using the host name, and so on. So this is very useful, to test APIs and see and do very nice things like this. Something that I want to show you very quick is the job. So this is one of the most important APIs that you use all the time. Creating something and adding a server to a group, updating a firmware. So you need to create a job. And this is the place where you see all the different jobs. And for example, if you want to get and create, the connection and send a request, a native request to an ILO on a server, you can follow all the steps. So usually when you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you have to run the calls in order. And then if you do all of that, it will generate and show you all the different tasks, to generate the SSO URL, to collect the token, and then finally to go up to the native request that use the token generated by COM. So you don't need any credentials. You are using, in this case, ILO SSO to access, the ILO and authenticate. We don't have much time to run that. You can play with that collection yourself. It's easy to replicate. Remember, create your fork, fill up your environment variables, select your environment, and start using the collections. Okay, so let's move on. Next is I was, there are many resources that I'm sharing, as I said, on GitHub. I have a personal GitHub on the web, available and publicly available. So there's tons of scripts that I'm sharing on ILOs, on OneView. For example, you can find scripts to generate CA sign, certificate authority sign certificate, how to change password across, multiple ILOs, how to add servers, users. Anything is available on my GitHub. I have one on Compute Ops Management. So if you go to GitHub and Julian L, let's click on that. So you can easily find, you go to GitHub and you type Julian L, you will find different repositories that I have. One for COM, one for COM bare metal provisioning. So this is a very nice project that is using Ansible. So this project is not only provisioning bare metal server, automatically and with a great efficiency, because bare metal provisioning is very complex, requires a lot of skills on program servers, on storage configuration, on creating an ISO file, creating a kickstart file, and then deploying the operating system. So it's very complex, and you have all of that in this COM bare metal project. Why I'm sharing that today? Because, for example, in ESX or Red Hat provisioning, you will see, in fact, all the native the requests that I'm using to interact with COM in order, to create the groups, to create the server settings, to mount the operating systems, to generate the kickstart. So it's not only a project that you can use for customers or even for your own data center. You can clone that project and modify all the variables, and you are ready to go. It's working quite well, and you can provision ESX, Red Hat, and Windows. But the purpose of this project is really to show you the different steps and the different requests that you need to run, against COM to do all the process flow, and so it's very, very useful. There's a README. I usually provide a lots of information, in the README, where you can see even some videos that I'm sharing, and what you need to do, to configure everything. So it's very detailed. You have the workflow and so on. So it's a very, very interesting project. I have the same. Where was I? Here, if you go to the top, there's also the same for Synergy and Module Demo that you can use. And finally, this is what we are going to discuss now, is the PowerShell library that I have released about a year ago. So this is a very, very interesting library. This is a PowerShell library, and you can do almost everything to automate, manage, create whatever you need in both GreenLake and COM. So for GreenLake, I don't support everything, and there are still some work to do. But for COM, you can do almost everything. You can create groups, you can create reports, you can add server to groups, you can do multiple things, using the PowerShell library. In the README, I explain everything. What are the requirements? We support a single-factor authentication, so you can use your username and password, but we support as well MFA, multi-factor authentication, with either Google Authenticator or Okta Verify. And we support as well single sign-on, but exclusively with Okta. And this is particularly useful for HPE emails, for HPE employees that wants to connect with the library. They can now use the SSO email account to connect with the library. I explain how to install the module. It's pretty simple. So make sure all the time you install the latest version to get the latest fixes and releases and features. If you are facing an issue, you can open a new issue on GitHub, and I will make sure that I take care of that. So you go here and you create a new issue like that. Hold on, I'm lost. I'm lost. Something I forgot to mention. I'm going to do the demo on the PowerShell library very quick. But before we go to the demo, I have a blog that you can find on this link here on my GitHub page. If you go to here, you will find several articles and blog posts that I created on the PowerShell library. This is where you are going to discover how to install different types of examples and how to update the library and so on. But I have many articles on webhooks, on the bare metal provisioning that I was talking about. There's a lot of information here on how to configure GreenLake with SAML and SSO SAML authentication with ADFS. I'm planning also to do a blog on Entra ID very soon. Webhooks, this is very important. It's very good to use, particularly if you want to automate and create some actions based on events. Webhooks are very, very useful for that. So you can create and trigger some actions against something, like you can create, new emails, you can generate a new message on a Slack channel. You can create a support case somewhere. You can do all of that totally automatically using webhooks with COM. And in this article, I explain everything. So what are webhooks, how to create two filter options, like because this is the way webhooks works. You need to create a filter. You need to define the type of events that you want to trigger. Like I want, like if I have a critical alerts, I want to create webhooks, and then you can use that webhooks to create and trigger an action. So this is very useful for to automate, your process flow. So in this example, so feel free to look. There are many information in here that can be very useful to you and integrate with your automation tools. And I'm even showing how to do that with Make, the famous low-code automation tool available. So it's a SaaS tool as well, a cloud-based tool that is available that you can create very nice scenarios and triggers a lot of actions like this. Okay, so let's move on. Let's move on and introduce the PowerShell library for COM, which is very, very useful. So as I said, there's a variety of key features for managing not only COM, but also GreenLake. So you can see here the source code that as well I was talking about the COM PowerShell library, the blog article, so which provides a lot of detailed information about the library. And the good news is that this library is published on the PowerShell gallery. So you can use the install module commandlet, and install the module in just a couple of seconds. And then what does it do? So pretty much everything for managing GreenLake and COM. So you can manage your workspaces, you can create users, you can see the roles, you can manage devices, your services, your subscriptions, but also from the COM side, you can create groups, you can create settings, you can automate server power actions. For example, you can restart a server, you can even schedule, and this is something that you don't have in the GUI. You can schedule some jobs. For example, if you want to run a sustainability report every week, you just run the commandlet with the interval parameter, and then you forget about it. Every week, it will run the carbon footprint report, so that you get all the time the latest and greatest data. So it's very, very useful. So if you want to learn more and you want to test around, you can get access to the source code on my GitHub page. You can install it from the install module commandlet. And you can see the screenshot, and this is my blog, where you will find a lot of information. So this is a great place to start. The PowerShell library has 148 commandlets, and the latest release is 1.0.13. I always use the verb dash prefix format. So it's always get, set, add, remove, new with a prefix, and the prefix depends on the resource and where the resource is located. So if your resource is located on GreenLake, then the prefix will be HPE GL for GreenLake. If your resource is in COM, then the prefix is HPE COM. Okay. So for example, you can see here for services, services is located in GreenLake. So you can do get HPE GreenLake for GL and service. For COM, there's a specific region parameter that must be used all the time, because for COM, there's always a region that is important to define. So for groups, for example, if you want to add a server to a group, you will do add dash HPE COM for the prefix, then server to group, plus the region parameter. And the region is the service instance that you are using. Could be, the European region, the APJ, or whatever. You have to define that so that the library knows where and which instance to use. And then for this typical commandlet, you need to use the serial number and the group name so that the server serial number will join the group name Rail hypervisor. Okay. And the good news as well is that I'm using, you can use the the tab completion key, for the region. So if you have multiple instances of COM, you can press the tab key and it will provide, the different regions that you have. Name, for the name, you have, so you can do get commands module HPE commandlet. So that's the name of the module in the PowerShell gallery. The module is HPE commandlet, and when you do get command, you will see all the different commands. Now the great part of this library is that you don't need any API client credentials in advance. You don't need to create them. As we explained before, you need to go to GreenLake and create the credentials. This is not required. All of that is totally automated when you use the connect HPE GreenLake commandlet. This is the initial commandlet that you need to use to connect to GreenLake and to the different COM instances. And when you do that, the commandlet will automatically generate temporary personal API credentials for GreenLake and for all the different instances. Okay, and then you can use the subsequent commandlets, and the library will automatically select the correct access token to pass the different API requests. So for instance, so let me go to VS Code very quick because we are almost at the top of the hour. And I'm going to show you very quick. So you have seen how to install the module, how to import the module. So import the module HPE commandlet. When you have done that, then you can run the connect HPE GreenLake commandlet. So it's connect, and here I'm using a hpe.com email account. So I need to use the SSO email because you cannot use username and password with an HPE domain account. So you need to use the SSO email parameter and then to provide your username and plus the workspace name. In this case, this is HPE Mougin. If you are using a non-HPE or Okta domain account, then you can use the credential parameter where you pass, the username and password in a credential object. And then once you have, so you can see that I'm using a multi-factor authentication. So I'm going to use so I don't know if you see that on my video, but I have the notification that is coming from Okta Verify, and I need to respond 11 to the notification. Once that is completed, then the connect HPE GreenLake commandlet will continue the logging process and will generate, as you can see, all the API credentials. So if I go to the GreenLake platform, if I go to Manage Workspace API credentials, I will see that I have already, the temporary credentials that were just generated by this commandlet. So it's very quick. I can move back. Can move back to my VS Code. And then when you are connected, the commandlet returns an object, which is the session object. This is the tracking object that I use, to track all the session, the access tokens and everything, the API credentials. As you can see, I have 9 workspace. I have 1 COM session, COM instance. And if I can do then get commands, I will see all the different commands. Okay. There are some remove, there are some restart, some send, we have more than 148 commands. tons of that. You can do many things. We still have 5 minutes to go. So let's do, for instance, something very important to remember. So this is my GreenLake session object that I'm using, where I store all the credentials and all your workspace name and everything, your username and so on. This is used by the library to pass all the commands. But remember that when you use, so every output that every command uses is formatted to improve the user experience. So if I do get something, the output will always be formatted. So you don't see exactly the entire content of the object. So remember to do the format list. I'm using here the alias to get the full content. When you do a pipes FL for format list, you see exactly the content that I have in this object. And then you can do, for instance, get workspace, and will return all the different workspace that I have in my on the platform. So you can see that I have a certain amount of workspaces, and I'm currently connected to the HPE Mougin. You can create jobs, you can create group. For instance, you can do a get group in the region, name AI group to show the members. Not going to do this one. I'm going to do this one because so you can see that when you do that, so get hpe.com group in the region European Central for the name real group. And if you do show members, you will see all the servers that are part of this group. In this case, the Red Hat 992.2, which is part of this group. You can see all the different groups. I was explaining that you can create jobs automatically and do some schedules. So if you create a new inventory, for example, this is one of the commandlets to create inventory. You can do inventory and do an interval of inventory every month. So when you do that, it will create a job that will repeat every month, to do the inventory of a specific server with that serial number. And then if I do the schedules, I assume I can see the schedule that I have just created. And I can remove the schedule by doing remove. I can do the show pending schedules and so on. I mean, you get the idea. There are tons of things to discover. I'm going now to explain very quick what I'm currently working in terms of where is my presentation? It's always difficult to find the presentation. Here we go. And this is the latest quick update on what is under development. So before, you can go to the release information on GitHub to see the latest release and to get the latest fixes and features that you can get. So make sure you always use the latest new release that I release all the time. For looking ahead, we've got some work in the pipeline. So we are currently exploring how to support SSO, so with Entra ID and Ping ID. When you use the connect HPE GL commandlet, today you can support only Okta. So we are going to expand that to Entra ID and Ping ID. This is what I'm currently working on. I'm going also to support Workspace V2 that has been recently introduced. So this is a big change in GreenLake. Up to now, we were using V1 Workspace. So V2 Workspace is introducing a lot of governance, IAM, access management and identity. So you can now delete workspaces and so on. So I'm going to introduce new commandlets for that. There are some new roles as well that are introduced. So this is something I'm working on. ActiveF information for ILOs. So today you cannot do that. So we need to work on that. AI insights for data center, AI inside data for server utilization and sustainability is not available. So we're working on that to get, the carbon footprint information and CPU and memory utilization. And finally, the ILO settings configuration that was introduced recently that is going to be added. So lots of good stuff. It's coming. Stay tuned. I think we covered everything. We are at the top of the hour. So thank you for your time. If you have any questions or want to dive deeper, into any of these topics, feel free to ask. I'm happy to help. Remember, if you are running into some issues with the PowerShell library or any of the GitHub projects that I have published, so feel free to create an issue on the GitHub page. And we'll make sure to take care of that. Otherwise, stay tuned for more updates. I wish you a great day.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you. There's one left question that everything else Blaine was able to answer, which is, how do you keep your Postman collection in sync with the release of the API?
So I'm doing the work almost I'm checking the notifications that I get from the API team. So I usually do that every month. I make an update.
So it's
you
manually,
can use the fork.
basically. I think that's what the question was. Do you do this manually? You have
I
to
do
check.
this manually, yes.
Okay. That was the last question we had. Thank you, Lionel. If you can answer the poll, people, that would be great, so we know if you like this session or not. Thank you, Lionel. I think you deserve more than 1 hour with so many things to explain.
Not so many things left.
But anyway, thank you. Great job. Thank you, everyone. I give you a few more seconds to answer the 3 questions in the poll that should be in front of you now. And I would like to thank you. I hope I will have a session in July to propose. The replay of this one will be made available on our Meetup page. There was a link provided earlier in the chat. And we should have this available within a few days maximum next week. And with that, thank you, everyone, and have a good rest of your day.